the hook that will grab their soul. What would you do if the very system you trusted, the same system that swore to protect you, turned around and tried to destroy your life? What would you do if the police didn't just pull you over, but planted drugs in your car, shattered your career, and twisted the world into believing you were a criminal? What would you do if the man leading that corruption was the same man who framed your father and drove him to his grave? Tonight's story isn't fiction. It's not an exaggeration. It's a reflection of the dark reality. Too many Americans, especially Black Americans, still live with every single day. Tonight, you'll witness a woman fighting an entire police department. You'll watch a corrupt captain's empire crumble, and you'll see how one truth, one sister, one spark of courage can expose a monster hiding behind a badge. But before we begin, let me warn you, this story will make you angry. It will break your heart. It will open your eyes. It will make you question how many stories like this go unseen. And by the end, you will understand why America must change. Not tomorrow, not eventually, but now. If you are ready for the truth, if you're ready for courage, betrayal, redemption, and justice, then you are in the right place. Before we dive in, hit subscribe to the Racial Truth channel. This is where we expose real stories, real injustice, and real people fighting back. Turn on notifications so you never miss the stories others try to hide. Now take a breath, because what you're about to see is the kind of story that changes people, and maybe, just maybe, changes the world. Let's begin. Rain, red and blue. "Officer, I know exactly what you're doing," Jasmine Cole said, her voice steady despite the storm pounding around them. "And that's why I've been recording you for the past 6 months." For a heartbeat, the rain seemed to pause. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in Brenton, Ohio, the kind of Rust Belt city where old factories sat like broken teeth and the racial divide ran as deep as the river that cut it in half. The street they were on was nearly empty, just a slick ribbon of asphalt glistening under fractured streetlights. Captain Mark Harlan stood frozen beside her weathered Honda Civic, rain sliding off the brim of his hat. His flashlight beam pinned her face in a pale circle of light, catching the calm in her eyes and the defiance just beneath it. 35-year-old Jasmine Cole, Black public defender, stared back at him without flinching. To someone driving past, this might have looked like any other late-night traffic stop, but nothing about this was random. Nothing about this was routine. How does someone like her end up here? If someone watching could hear a narrator, they'd hear the question that hung over this moment like a storm cloud. How does a young public defender with a spotless record end up with 3 kilos of cocaine in her trunk during a routine traffic stop? Behind his carefully cultivated image, Harlan's practiced smirk faltered for just a second at Jasmine's opening line. Confusion flickered across his face. Then anger. His hand drifted toward his holster as the rain intensified around them, drumming on the roof of her car, turning the world into a blur of water and colored light. This stretch of Brenton's east side was empty. No pedestrians, no open shops, no traffic cameras, just Harlan, his officers, and Jasmine, and the trap he had spent months preparing. Who Jasmine really is, before this night, Jasmine Cole had a reputation in Brenton's cramped courthouse. 8 years as a public defender, one of the few Black attorneys regularly seen in felony court. Known for staying late, fighting hard, and refusing to let poor clients be railroaded for convenience, her clients respected her. Many loved her in the quiet, desperate way that people love someone who stands between them and a system designed to crush them. But in the Brenton Police Department, her name tasted sour in certain mouths. To officers like Harlan and his circle, Jasmine wasn't just a lawyer. She was a problem. She asked too many questions, filed too many motions, and challenged too many arrests that were supposed to glide through the system unquestioned. She was also the daughter of Detective James Cole, a Black officer whose name was still spoken in low tones. 8 years earlier, James had been accused of corruption. Drugs were found in his locker. Case files suddenly compromised. Rumors spread faster than any investigation. He never got the chance to clear his name. Before any formal review could exonerate or condemn him, he was found dead. Official ruling, suicide. Jasmine never believed it. Nina, her younger sister, never believed it. Anyone who knew the kind of man James was never believed it. And the man who had quietly helped shut down every attempt to reopen James Cole's case, Captain Mark Harlan. At the funeral, beneath a gray sky and a line of folded flags, Harlan had leaned close to Jasmine, voice too low for others to hear. "Your father chose the easy way out," he'd whispered. "Smart man." The sympathy on his public face never reached his eyes. Jasmine had carried that moment like a stone inside her ever since. The night begins. An hour before the traffic stop, Jasmine's Honda had been crawling through Brenton's east side, wipers smearing rain across the windshield as she drove home from a long day at the courthouse. She deliberately took a back route, one she'd memorized, to avoid regular police checkpoints. Years of watching clients pulled over for failure to signal or furtive movements had taught her to treat certain intersections like ambush sites. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nina. "Still coming for dinner Sunday?" For a moment, Jasmine had smiled, a small, warm thought in the middle of a cold, hard day. She'd typed a quick yes at a red light. Then the light turned green, and life moved on, until the blue and red lights flared in her rearview mirror. Her stomach knotted. She glanced at her dashboard. No speeding, no warnings, no obvious violation. But when she saw the distinctive silhouette behind the wheel of the patrol car, her blood ran cold. Captain Mark Harlan. She pulled over slowly, heart pounding, mind racing. This isn't random. 3 cars for one woman, rain battered the car as she rolled down her window. Harlan approached with deliberate slowness, each step heavy with authority. "License and registration, Ms. Cole," he said calmly. His tone was courteous. His history with her was anything but. "What's the reason for the stop, Captain Harlan?" Jasmine asked, keeping her voice controlled. Courtroom training wrapped around her fear like armor. "Taillights out," he replied. "Dangerous in this weather." She almost laughed. Not out loud. She wasn't suicidal, but inwardly, bitterly. Her taillights had been working when she left the office. She flicked her eyes to the mirror. Behind him, a second patrol car pulled up silently. Its lights stayed off. Officer Daniels stepped out, heading toward the back of her vehicle. A third car, unmarked, parked across the street. Another officer, Luis Ramirez, emerged and stayed near the shadows, eyes scanning the area, and then focusing on her. 3 officers, 1 broken taillight. Rain washes the streets clean of witnesses. "Step out of the vehicle, please," Harlan said. "Am I being detained?" Jasmine responded. "Just a routine check, counselor. You understand the procedure." His hand slid to rest lightly on his holster. "Unless you have something to worry about." Her mind raced. Her phone was recording audio in her bag, as it always did when she was near certain officers. Harlan, Daniels, a few others who liked throwing their weight around. But audio wouldn't capture what they were about to do behind her back. And she could see in the side mirror Daniels circling toward her trunk, fingers tapping his jacket pocket again and again. "Ms. Cole," Harlan snapped, patience thinning. "Step out now or I'll have to consider this resistance." She took a breath so deep it almost hurt. Then she unlocked the door and stepped out into the rain. "You don't have probable cause." The cold hit her instantly, soaking through her blazer, chilling her skin. Harlan moved so that his body blocked her view of his patrol car and most of her own. "I'm going to search your vehicle," he announced, tone flat but final. It sounded less like a statement of intent and more like a pre-written script. "You don't have probable cause," Jasmine shot back. "I do not consent to a search." Harlan's expression hardened, but his voice stayed smooth. "I detected the odor of marijuana when you rolled down your window," he lied easily. "That gives me probable cause." Across the street, in the reflection of a darkened storefront, Jasmine noticed a faint glow, the shape of someone holding up a phone, recording. The face was obscured by rain and distance, but the light was there. Someone else was watching. Her pulse quickened. Not with relief, but with cautious hope. "That's impossible," she said. "There's no marijuana in my car, and you know it." Harlan ignored her, nodding to Daniels. "Check the trunk." Jasmine instinctively tried to move toward the back of the car, but Harlan stepped into her path, close enough that she could see drops of rain beating on his lashes. "Stay where you are, Ms. Cole." Behind him, Daniels popped the trunk. The rain provided perfect cover as he slid his hand into his jacket, pulled out a sealed plastic bag, and tucked it beneath the trunk's carpet lining with a quick, practiced motion. "Captain," Daniels called out, raising his voice just enough, "you might want to take a look at this." Harlan's mouth twitched with the ghost of a smile before he forced it back into a mask of professional concern. "Keep an eye on her," he said to Ramirez, then headed toward the trunk. Ramirez shifted uneasily, his eyes flicking between Jasmine and his colleagues. For a brief moment, their gazes met, and she saw it, a flicker of shame struggling against fear. "I know what you're doing," Jasmine shouted over the rain, making sure every word was loud, clear, and memorable. "This is a setup." From defender to suspect, Harlan lifted the trunk liner with a deliberate flourish, then slowly pulled out a large Ziploc bag filled with white powder. "Ms. Cole," he said, voice grave but eyes gleaming, "you have a serious problem. Would you care to explain this?" "Those are not mine," she said, her voice raw now, not from lack of control but from the weight of what she knew was coming. "You know damn well they're not mine. You just planted that." "The prominent public defender, carrying narcotics," Harlan mused, loud enough for any camera nearby. "What a shame." He signaled to Daniels. "Cuff her." Daniels grabbed her wrists roughly. The metal of the handcuffs bit into her skin, cold and unforgiving. Each click sounded like a door slamming shut somewhere in the distance. "Jasmine Cole," Daniels recited, "you're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance." "This is a frame job," Jasmine protested, struggling against his grip. "You're doing this because of my father, because I've been investigating you." Harlan leaned close, his voice dropping into a whisper only she could hear. "Your father couldn't prove anything either," he murmured. "Look how that ended for him." Her chest tightened, but she refused to look away. "I want my phone call," she said louder this time. "I want my lawyer present for questioning." "Of course," Harlan replied, raising his voice back to public volume. "You'll have all your constitutional rights, counselor." Officer Ramirez retrieved her purse from the passenger seat, carefully avoiding her eyes. He handed it to Harlan, who passed it to Daniels to be logged as evidence. Daniels shoved Jasmine toward the patrol car with unnecessary force. Her shoulder slammed into the doorframe, pain shooting down her arm as he pushed her into the back seat. Through the rain-streaked window, she watched Harlan make a phone call, his expression one of practiced concern, but his eyes still bright with triumph. She knew the next steps. Within hours, Brenton's news sites would light up. Respected public defender caught with drugs. Her career, her father's memory, her months of quiet investigation, all crushed in one night. As the cruiser pulled away, Jasmine turned her head just in time to see the storefront across the street. The figure with the phone was gone. Even in that moment of deepest violation, the lesson shimmered faintly underneath. In a country where power can be abused this easily, justice will never survive on its own. It needs witnesses. It needs courage. It needs people willing to risk everything to stand up again and again for what is right. When you're ready, say. The night her name was stolen. The cruiser pulled away from the curb slowly, almost gently, as if mocking the violence that had just been committed against Jasmine's life. Rain hammered the roof, drowning out the faint hum of the engine. The city blurred through the fog glass. Neon lights, puddles reflecting street lamps, quiet houses with families asleep inside. Families who would wake up tomorrow to news stories about her. Families who would believe those stories. Jasmine sat in the back seat, wrists cuffed painfully behind her, her shoulder throbbing from where Daniels had shoved her. Her hair was plastered to her skin, rainwater soaking through her clothes and settling cold into her bones. She couldn't wipe her face, couldn't fix her falling braid, couldn't hug her arms around herself for warmth. She couldn't do anything but breathe and try not to break. For the first time that night, fear slipped past her defenses. Not fear for her career or reputation, but fear of how deeply this system could reach into a life and crush it without hesitation. Fear of how easily she could disappear. Her father had disappeared in exactly the same way. Even the rain felt like a cruel echo of the night James Cole died. The speed of a fall. When they reached the county jail, the rain had thickened into a roaring curtain. Jasmine was marched through the intake hallway, a narrow fluorescent-lit tunnel that hummed with buzzing lights and the faint smell of bleach and metal. The humiliation began immediately. Shoes removed, kuni belt removed, hair tie taken, jewelry confiscated, including her father's watch, pockets turned inside out, wet blazer stripped off, wallet searched, personal items bagged, Shoni photograph taken with a camera that didn't care if she was ready. The flash burned into her eyes. Her face appeared on the monitor, exhausted, drenched, emotionless in a way that made her look guilty. The officer behind the desk said her name without looking at her. Jasmine Cole, 35, public defender. He said public defender with the same tone people use for mold found in a pantry. Minutes later, she was in a holding cell with 6 other women, most of them asleep on metal benches. She sat alone, feeling water drip from her hair down her spine. Her phone had been seized, her laptop seized, her files were seized, her freedom was seized. Her story was no longer hers. It belonged to the people who would twist it first. The world wakes up without her. At 6:17 a.m., Brenton woke up to headlines. Public defender arrested with 3 kilos of cocaine. Jasmine Cole, longtime advocate, implicated in drug trafficking. Captain Mark Harlan, deeply disappointing. Each article featured her mugshot, the rain-soaked face, tired eyes, blurred frustration. They didn't mention a broken taillight. They didn't question why a captain was on a quiet road at night. They didn't mention the 3 officers present for a traffic stop. They never do. In the jail's common area, a group of inmates gathered around the small mounted television. Jasmine sat near the back, trying to steady her breathing as her booking photo flashed across the screen. Captain Mark Harlan stood at a podium, wearing his most respectable expression, the one journalists loved. "It's always troubling," he said, "when someone entrusted with upholding justice betrays that trust." A reporter shouted a question. "Captain Harlan, is it true Ms. Cole has made allegations about misconduct within your department?" Harlan's jaw tightened, but he managed a sympathetic sigh. "Ms. Cole has made numerous unsubstantiated claims over the years," he said. "We believe this arrest explains her motivation for attacking the integrity of hardworking officers." Oh. The room felt colder. Next, District Attorney Patrick Sloan appeared on screen, shifting nervously behind his glasses. "Effective immediately," he announced, "Ms. Cole's license to practice law in Brenton County is suspended pending investigation." Suspended, just like that. No hearing, no defense, no process. Her clients, poor, mostly Black or Hispanic, relying on her, now faced the system without her. Cases she'd worked on for months would collapse. Plea deals would be shoved on her with terrified defendants with no advocate to shield them. Her work, her relationships, her purpose, snatched away in the time it took for Sloan to read a single sentence. Someone leans close. Jasmine didn't cry. She felt like she should. Felt like letting tears fall might relieve something. Anything. But her body refused grief. It stayed locked, rigid, alert. Like she would need every ounce of strength for what was coming next. An inmate approached. A young woman in orange who looked barely 20. "They did the same thing to my brother," she whispered. "Said they found meth in his car. He's still inside." Jasmine met her eyes, searching for truth, for motive, for anything that could be a trap. But what she saw wasn't deceit. It was recognition. It was someone who understood this kind of pain too well, because people from communities like theirs didn't have the luxury of seeing injustice as hypothetical. They lived it, inherited it, passed down its scars like family stories. Cell Block D. By the afternoon, Jasmine was led to Cell Block D, the long hallway echoing with iron doors slamming shut behind guards. Stripped of her suit, stripped of her title, stripped of every symbol of her life, she stepped into a new identity the system adored assigning. Inmate. Her orange jumpsuit hung awkwardly on her frame, the slip-on shoes too big, the fluorescent lighting making her look like a ghost of herself. Guards who recognized her from years of legal visits avoided eye contact. Her cellmate sat on the lower bunk. A black woman, late 20s, with tired eyes and a posture that suggested she'd stopped expecting fairness a long time ago. "Didn't think I'd ever see you in here," the woman said quietly after lights out. Jasmine forced a breath. "I didn't do this. None of us did." The woman shifted under her thin blanket. "I'm Keisha Brooks." Jasmine recognized the name. "You were an ER nurse," she said slowly. "You treated that teenager who was beaten half to death in custody." Keisha finished. "I filed a report. 2 weeks later, I was pulled over. They found cocaine in my glove compartment." Jasmine's heart constricted. "How many?" she asked. "7 of us I know about. Maybe more." "All minorities," Jasmine murmured. "All of us crossed one of Harlan's officers in some way," Keisha said. "Filed a complaint, told the truth, spoke too loud." A silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Keisha sighed. "They've been doing this for years. Evidence disappears. Witnesses change their stories. Public defenders are overworked. Most people take the plea." Jasmine swallowed. "My father? James Cole? He was investigating something similar 8 years ago." Keisha sat up. "Your father wasn't corrupt." Jasmine stiffened. "No one who worked at Brenton General believed it," Keisha said, her voice softening. "He brought in victims who trusted him more than anybody. His death," she hesitated, "it never made sense." Jasmine felt something inside her chest crack open. A mixture of old grief, new clarity, and a rising fire. "Harlan blocked every attempt to reopen his case," Jasmine whispered. Keisha nodded. "Of course he did." The truth settled in the air between them like a third presence. In the darkness, with the building humming and the lights occasionally flickering, the weight of what Jasmine was up against became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just a setup. It wasn't just retaliation. It wasn't even just corruption. It was a system, a machine, one that crushed those who exposed it, buried those who resisted it, and hunted those who dared to challenge its authority. Her father tried, and they destroyed him. Now they were coming for her with the same blueprint. But this time, something is different. As the guards performed midnight count, their flashlights sweeping across the bunks, Keisha whispered, "They're watching you extra close." Jasmine opened her eyes. "You must really scare them." And that was the moment, fragile and faint, where the humanistic lesson shimmered through the despair. When corrupt power fears truth, it attacks hardest. But it also reveals its weakness. And people like Jasmine, like Keisha, like the young woman whose brother was framed, they were no longer standing alone. Pain was connecting them. Truth was connecting them. Courage was connecting them. Even in the darkest places, love and solidarity were quietly forming the beginnings of resistance. Jasmine stared at the ceiling, the rain still echoing in her memory. "They think they've won," she whispered into the dark. Keisha didn't respond. She didn't need to, because both of them knew the fight was only beginning. The jail felt like a living organism, breathing, shifting, watching. Every metal door that slammed behind Jasmine seemed to pulse through the concrete like the heartbeat of a system built to suffocate anyone who dared confront it. She had spent years on the outside, navigating its corridors as a defender, believing she understood its cruelty. But nothing prepared her for the experience of being inside its stomach. Orange jumpsuit, slip-on shoes, cold air conditioning that wrapped around her like punishment. A thin mattress that barely cushioned the bones of women who were already carrying the weight of the world. Hours blurred together in a haze of processing, whispered instructions, and muffled shoes on linoleum. Jasmine felt the full machinery of injustice swallowing her with methodical precision. The moment she was booked, her place in society was rewritten. Not as advocate, daughter, sister, protector, but as a defendant, as suspect, as someone the system could shape into whatever narrative suited them, and they were shaping fast. The media feast. By sunrise, the outside world had already begun to devour her. At 6:17 a.m., the Brenton Herald updated its homepage. Public defender arrested on drug trafficking charges. 3 kilos of cocaine, Found in vehicle prominent attorney implicated in criminal network. Her booking photo, rain-soaked hair, exhausted eyes, a face that carried the ache of being hunted, was plastered across local stations before she even had a chance to sit down for breakfast. Inmates gathered around the television in the common area while guards pretended not to watch her reaction. Captain Mark Harlan stood confidently behind a podium, delivering his rehearsed outrage to the cameras. It is always troubling when someone entrusted with upholding justice betrays that trust. His tone was grave, graven by feigned disappointment. His eyes glimmered with triumph. A reporter shouted from the back, "Captain Harlan, is it true that Ms. Cole was investigating misconduct within your department?" "Ms. Cole has made numerous unsubstantiated allegations," Harlan replied smoothly. "This arrest helps explain her motivation." The inmates shook their heads. A few cursed at the screen. One muttered, "They always say that." Then the district attorney appeared, adjusting his glasses as if mourning the state of the world. "Effective immediately, Ms. Cole's law license is suspended pending further investigation." Jasmine's stomach clenched. Her clients, the teenagers she guided, the single mothers she protected, the people forgotten by society, were now abandoned in a maze they could never navigate alone. The system didn't just arrest her, it rearranged the entire ecosystem around her. A sudden hush fell over the inmates. One of them, a thin black girl barely past 20, turned to Jasmine. "They did the same thing to my brother last year," she whispered. "Said they found meth. They lie so easily, it sounds like the truth." Jasmine's throat tightened. Something in the girl's eyes, hurt, recognition, the hollow exhaustion of injustice, stabbed her deeper than the night's violence had. This wasn't just about her arrest. This was about a pattern she had documented, a pattern her father had uncovered, a pattern Captain Harlan had built his empire upon. The truth flickered painfully. She was never meant to walk away from last night alive, not as herself. She was meant to become a headline, a cautionary tale, a silenced threat. The return to cell block D. The fluorescent lights hummed as guards escorted her toward the deeper, darker wing of the jail. Cell block D, the place where hope went to die. Her shoes squeaked along the polished floor, echoing through the hallway. Officers who once greeted her with forced courtesy when she visited clients now refused to meet her eyes. Their shame was palpable, but so was their fear of crossing Harlan. Jasmine wasn't a person anymore. She was a symbol, and nothing terrifies a corrupt system more than a symbol of resistance. Her cellmate, Keisha Brooks, shifted on her thin mattress as Jasmine entered. In the dimness, her silhouette looked carved from exhaustion. "Never thought I'd see you in here," Keisha whispered. "I didn't do this," Jasmine murmured, even though her voice trembled. Keisha let out a hollow laugh. "None of us did." And so in the quiet darkness, a bond formed. Not of friendship, not yet, but of survival. The patterns of a rigged system after lights out, whispers filled the cell like fragile threads weaving truth into the night. Keisha had been an ER nurse. She had treated a teenage boy, half beaten to death while in police custody. She reported it. 2 weeks later, she was arrested. "Traffic stop," Keisha said bitterly. "Just like you. Just like the others." "The others?" Jasmine asked. "At least 7 in the last 3 years. All framed, all minorities, all had crossed Harlan in some way." "Me? I filed that report. Marcus Johnson? He organized protests. Elena Martinez? She filed a brutality complaint after her brother ended up with broken ribs." Jasmine's pulse quickened. The same pattern she'd been documenting. The same pattern her father had uncovered and died for. Keisha leaned closer. "They took out anybody who threatened their power, and now they came for you." Jasmine felt a pressure in her chest, part grief, part rage. "My father. They said it was suicide," she whispered. Keisha shook her head slowly. "No one believed that. Not in my hospital. Not anyone who really knew him." The fluorescent lights outside their cell flickered, as if reacting to the truth spoken inside. "Whatever you were digging into," Keisha continued, "you hit the same nerve he did." And suddenly the room felt colder, not because of the air, but because Jasmine sensed the gravity of what she was stepping into. Her father hadn't died because he failed. He died because he succeeded. Jasmine's contingency plan. Hours passed. Footsteps echoed up and down the corridor as guards performed checks. The women in nearby cells shifted, murmured, cried softly. Jasmine stared at the cracked ceiling, a storm brewing behind her eyes. She had planned for this. Not this exact scenario, not this exact night, but something like it. Her father's death had taught her that truth-tellers in a corrupt system must move like ghosts, quiet, cautious, always prepared to disappear or be disappeared. "Why aren't you panicking?" Keisha whispered. Jasmine closed her eyes. "Because they made a mistake." Keisha frowned. "What kind of mistake?" "They assumed I didn't have a plan." She didn't elaborate. Not yet. Not until she knew she could trust her. But hope flickered within her, tiny but alive. She had backups, contingencies, hidden evidence, a network of encrypted files, and a sister who knew how to read between her lines. If Harlan thought tonight was checkmate, he underestimated the daughter of James Cole. First contact the next day, a guard escorted Jasmine to the visitation booth. She expected Maya. She expected tears or rage or the gut-wrenching helplessness they'd both learned to swallow young. But instead, a man she didn't know sat behind the glass, bearded, calm, eyes sharp with purpose. He lifted the phone receiver slowly. "My name is Officer James Reddick," he said quietly, "transferred here from Chicago PD." Jasmine didn't lift the receiver at first. Her heart hammered. Every instinct screamed trap. "Relax," he murmured. "I'm not here for Harlan." She lifted the phone. Barely. "Why are you here?" she whispered. "Because I know who you are," he said. "I know what your father was investigating. I know what you've been documenting, and you need to hear this. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. And you're not alone." Jasmine's breath caught. "Harlan is running more than a frame-up operation," Reddick continued. "This is organized crime wearing a badge. I've been tracking it. Internal Affairs in Chicago flagged it years ago." Jasmine felt her pulse spike. She had been waiting for someone, anyone, from the outside who saw what she saw. But trust was not a luxury she could afford. "If this is a setup," she began. "It's not," he cut in. "There's an ongoing federal investigation. You getting arrested just accelerated everything." Jasmine leaned in. "What do you want from me?" Reddick lowered his voice to a near whisper. "I want you to survive long enough for us to bring this whole damn thing down." Before she could respond, the guard tapped the glass. "Time." Reddick stood, paused, and slid a card beneath the divider, smoothly like a magician passing a secret. "Memorize the number," he said softly. "And Jasmine, don't trust anyone wearing a Brenton badge." Then he walked away. The seed of resistance. Back in her cell, Jasmine's hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with the adrenaline of possibility. The system wasn't impenetrable. There were cracks. There were witnesses. There were people willing to defect. Her fight wasn't ending. It was sharpening. Keisha watched her carefully. "What happened out there?" Jasmine shook her head, still stunned. "I think," she whispered, "the world outside this cell is shifting." But the lesson, the quiet truth beneath her words, held far more weight. When enough people refuse to bow to injustice, no matter the cost, systems built on fear begin to tremble. And somewhere deep within the walls of Brenton County Jail, something began to tremble indeed. Night crept into cell block D like a slow-moving tide, carrying with it the weight of unspoken truths. The hum of fluorescent lights felt more oppressive than before, buzzing against Jasmine's skull with a relentless insistence. It was as if the jail itself could sense the shift, an awakening she hadn't expected, a new thread pulling her towards something larger, darker, and far more dangerous than she'd imagined. Keisha Brooks lay awake on the lower bunk, staring at the ceiling. Jasmine could hear her breathing, steady but heavy with memories she'd never intended to voice. Finally, Keisha whispered, "Couldn't sleep?" Jasmine exhaled slowly. "No." "Yeah," Keisha murmured. "This place doesn't let you sleep." Jasmine turned toward her. "Earlier you mentioned others. People who were framed, like us." Keisha's jaw tightened. She sat up, crossing her legs. the dim light catching the exhaustion etched into her features. They come in different shape, she began softly. Different lives, different stories. But the pattern? It's the same every time. There was something deeply human about the way she said it, some mix of resignation and bravery that made Jasmine's chest ache. Tell me, Jasmine whispered. Keisha nodded. 3 years ago, it was Marcus Johnson, she began. He organized those protests after that boy died in custody. That kid, Donald Hughes, 14 years old? She shook her head. Reed hated that Marcus had people chanting his name in the streets. Jasmine had represented Marcus once. She remembered his conviction-heavy voice, the way he'd said, "If they don't hear us, we'll make them." He got pulled over 2 weeks after the protests, Keisha continued. 3 kilos of meth found in his trunk. Sound familiar? A chill slid down Jasmine's spine. And then Elena Martinez, Keisha said quietly. Her brother got beaten black and blue during an arrest. She filed a complaint. The department tried to bury it, so she went public. And she got arrested next, Jasmine guessed. Keisha nodded. Her evidence was a duffel bag of heroin under the passenger seat of her car. She pled guilty. She had 2 kids. She couldn't risk losing them. Jasmine pressed her hands against her knees, breathing slowly, steadily, even as her pulse hammered. It was the same pattern her father had charted on his investigation board. The same web of names, the same timeline, the same silent victims crushed beneath Harlan's machinery. And then, me, Keisha said quietly. The words trembled in the air. I did everything right, she whispered. I filed reports when I saw police brutality. I stood up because someone needed to. She swallowed hard, voice thickening. And they came for me anyway. The room felt smaller suddenly, as if walls and ceiling were closing in around Jasmine's body. Her father had whispered similar words years ago. Sometimes the cost of telling the truth is the life you used to live. She had never understood how literal that was until now. Why hasn't anyone fought back? Jasmine asked. Keisha laughed bitterly. With what weapon? We don't have lawyers who care. We don't have cameras. We don't have the DA on speed dial. The judges trust the police more than they trust us. She paused. And now they've taken you. You were one of the only people who ever believed us. Her voice cracked on the last word. Jasmine closed her eyes, the ache spreading through her ribcage. Keisha, she said softly, I'm not done fighting. Keisha exhaled, part disbelief, part gratitude, part hopeless hope. You better not be, she murmured, because you might be the only one who can actually stop this. The ghost of her father, sleep came in fragments, thin slices of unconsciousness punctuated by memories. Her father, James Cole, is sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of documents. Her father pinned a red string on a corkboard. Her father was sitting in his police uniform, eyes tired but voice firm. Her father whispered to her when she was 13, Jas, if something ever happens to me, don't let them tell you I gave up. Every time she blinked, she saw him. Every time she inhaled, she felt his unfinished work reawakening inside her. When morning came, she was already sitting up, heart pounding with a sense of purpose that felt almost foreign after days of helplessness. Keisha watched her. You look like you're planning something. Not planning, Jasmine murmured. Remembering. Remembering what? That this started long before me? Keisha nodded slowly as if recognizing a shift in Jasmine's posture. Something steadier, sharper. You ain't your father, she said gently, but you're something like him. The words lodged in Jasmine's chest. No one had said anything like that since the funeral, when Captain Harlan himself approached to offer his condolences. She remembered the way he leaned close, his breath hot against her ear, whispering, Your father chose the easy way out, Jasmine. Smart man. He had smirked. In her grief, she had wanted to hit him. Today, with her father's truth burning in her bloodstream, she wanted something far more powerful. Justice. The arrival of Officer Reddick. That afternoon, everything changed. A guard called her name for a visitation. Jasmine expected Maya, but instead Officer James Reddick, Chicago transfer, sat waiting behind the glass. His presence felt like a fault line cracking open the ground beneath her. He lifted the phone receiver. Jasmine hesitated, then lifted hers. "I told you yesterday," he said quietly. "You're not imagining any of this." She studied him carefully. His eyes were steady, not soft, not pitying, just unflinching. "Why come to me?" she asked. "Because you're the only one who dug deep enough to find the truth," Reddick said. "Your father came close. Real close." Jasmine froze. "You knew him?" "Not personally," he said, "but his files were sent to Chicago years ago. The parts that survived." Her pulse quickened. "The parts that survived?" "Harlan destroyed most of it," Reddick said bluntly. "Tampered with evidence logs, replaced hard drives, coerced witnesses, forced resignations." Jasmine gripped the phone tighter. "So my father didn't—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Reddick's voice softened. "Jasmine, your father didn't kill himself. Everyone in Chicago IA knew something was wrong." Her vision blurred for a moment. Her lungs fought for air. "He died because he got too close," Reddick continued. "And now, so did you." Jasmine closed her eyes. Pain surged through her like an electric current. But beneath the pain was something steadier, stronger. Resolve. Reddick leaned forward. "I'm not from Brenton," he said. "I'm not part of Harlan's circle. I was sent by Internal Affairs in Chicago. We've been tracking corrupt networks that span multiple counties. Harlan's crew? They're not just dirty cops. They're traffickers disguised as heroes." Jasmine inhaled sharply. Every cell in her body clenched. "We've suspected for months that they plant drugs from real seizures," Reddick explained. "Redistribute them. Build criminal empires while branding innocent people as felons." "That's exactly what happened to me," Jasmine whispered. "And to your father's witnesses," he added. Her stomach twisted. "You need to stay alive," Reddick said, "because your case is the tinder. It's the spark we needed." Jasmine frowned. "What do you mean?" "You being arrested accelerates everything," he said. "Federal eyes are on Harlan now. Some of his officers are starting to break. Detective Harris reached out to us last night." Jasmine blinked. "Harris? He worked directly under Harlan." "Exactly," Reddick said. "And that means Harlan's own structure is cracking." He slid a card under the divider. "Memorize this number." Jasmine glanced at the card, then back at him. "What if this is a trap?" she asked. Reddick's expression didn't change. "If I wanted you silenced, Jasmine," he murmured, "you wouldn't be sitting in this room." She swallowed hard. "The walls are closing in on Harlan," he continued. "But to bring him down, we need the last piece. We need the evidence he hasn't destroyed." Jasmine's mind raced to every hidden file, every recorded conversation, every encrypted backup, and then to the watch her father had given her, still sitting in the property inventory room, still safe, still holding the micro SD card. Reddick stood. "Stay strong," he said quietly. "This fight didn't start with you, but it might end because of you." Then he walked away, leaving Jasmine with a heart burning like a brand. The humanistic truth. When Jasmine returned to her cell, Keisha watched her carefully. "You look different," Keisha said slowly. Jasmine nodded. "I think," she whispered, "the truth is finally waking up." Keisha let out a shaky breath. "Then maybe we still got a shot." Jasmine sat on her bunk, letting the weight of the moment settle. She looked at Keisha, at the walls stained by decades of suffering, the locked doors meant to cage the powerless. And she said the words that felt like a vow. "Keisha, I'm going to finish what my father started." In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a shared belief that justice was not just a courtroom concept. It was a human promise, a collective fight, a love so fierce it forced the world to become better. And in that dark, forgotten hallway of Brenton County Jail, that promise began to take shape. The cabin sat deep in the woods, surrounded by a ring of towering pines that swayed in the wind like silent sentries. It had once been a sanctuary for Jasmine and Nina's family, a place where their father taught them to skip stones, where they roasted marshmallows in the fire pit, where laughter once lived. Tonight, it was a war room. Nina Turner paced across the creaking wooden floor, her heartbeat pounding loud enough to drown out the humming refrigerator. She couldn't stop replaying Reed's smug threat in the park. His casual reminder that he could destroy her sister with the same ease he swatted away complaints and investigations for years. Accidents happen in prison, he'd said. Her sister's life wasn't a bargaining chip. Her father's death wasn't a warning to be swallowed. And fear wasn't a language Nina intended to speak anymore. Sarah Parker, former FBI forensic accountant and Nina's closest friend, sat at the table sifting through stacks of financial records. She was calm, methodical, every movement precise, her eyes scanning pages the way a surgeon inspects vital organs. Alex Rodriguez, a tech specialist Nina trusted with her life, hunched over a laptop, fingers flying as he cracked encrypted files and rerouted server connections. The air felt electric, part grief, part anger, part hope. Finally, Nina stopped pacing. "We need more than suspicion," she said, her voice trembling with urgency. "We need the kind of evidence that knocks down doors. We need what Jasmine left behind." Sarah glanced up, her expression heavy with both compassion and determination. "We'll find it," she said. "Your father was no amateur, and Jasmine learned from the best." Nina swallowed hard. She shouldn't have had to learn. None of them said anything to that. Some truths were too heavy to acknowledge aloud. The resurrection of a dead man's case. The battered tackle box sat in the corner, untouched since their father's last fishing trip. It was dented, rusted at the hinges, and the paint chipped from years of use. Nina stared at it for a long moment before finally kneeling beside it. Her hands shook as she lifted the lid. Inside were lures, tangled fishing line, old hooks, and a faded map with notes scribbled in her father's handwriting. Beneath them all, hidden where no one would think to look, lay a waterproof pouch. She pulled it out carefully and unzipped it. Inside was a single USB drive. Sarah leaned forward. "Plug it in." Nina hesitated. The moment felt sacred, like touching a relic. She handed the drive to Alex with trembling fingers. Alex inserted it into the port. The laptop screen flickered. Then a password prompt appeared. "Try his badge number," Nina whispered. "Access denied." Sarah suggested gently, "Maybe your mother's birthday?" Denied again. Nina's throat tightened. She stared at the password box, mind racing through memories, dates, names, anniversaries. Then she froze. She typed one word. "Read." The screen unlocked. Alex let out a slow whistle. Your father wasn't just investigating Reed. He was obsessed with documenting him. Hundreds of files populated the screen. Photos, scanned documents, financial ledgers, internal memos, witness statements, time-stamped logs. Nina felt her knees weaken. "He never stopped," she whispered. "Even when they destroyed his reputation, even when they called him corrupt, even when he was gone." Sarah's voice softened. "He knew what Reed was." Nina clenched her jaw. "And now Reed knows what Jasmine is." Her eyes burned with fury and love. "We're finishing his work," Nina said. "Every last piece." The warehouse. Late into the night, Sarah flipped through shipping manifests while Alex hacked into the security feeds of the warehouse listed in multiple documents. "Clearwater Holdings," Sarah murmured. "Shell Corporation. No employees. No legitimate business footprint." "Yeah, that's because they're not selling furniture," Alex muttered. A grainy video feed flickered to life on the laptop. A loading dock. A door marked Unit 14. Silence. Then headlights. 3 police cruisers arrived, their lights off to avoid detection. Reed stepped out first. Daniels followed. 2 more officers emerged behind them. "That's them," Nina whispered, leaning closer. The feed showed duffel bags being carried inside the warehouse, bags heavy enough to sag. Alex zoomed in. No tags, no evidence seals. Sarah pointed at the screen. "That's redistribution," she said. "They're taking drugs seized from legitimate arrests and reselling them. This is federal-level corruption." Alex fast-forwarded. The officers returned with envelopes, thick ones, kickbacks, payoffs, proof. Nina's heart thudded as she whispered, "This is how they fund everything." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Detective Harris breaks. Hours later, Nina received a call. The number was unknown. "Who is this?" she asked. A low voice answered. "Harris." Detective Michael Harris. 18 years on the force. Reed's loyal foot soldier until now. Why are you calling me? Nina demanded. I'm done being scared, he said quietly. I'm done watching innocent people go to prison. Reed has gone too far. Your sister didn't deserve this. Nina exhaled shakily. Then help us. I am, Harris said. I've got information, but Reed is watching me. He paused, breath shaky. I bought a burner phone. I saved one number. Whose? Officer Reddick's. The name hit Nina like a jolt. Her pulse quickened. Harris, she said, voice firm. If you finally decided to do the right thing, we need you to help bring him down. Harris inhaled sharply. I'll wear a wire, he whispered. Nina's breath caught. But understand something, Harris warned. Reed doesn't just retaliate, he destroys. He ruined your father. He's going to try to ruin you too. I'm not afraid of him, Nina said through clenched teeth. Then you're underestimating him, Harris said. Reed has a judge, a DA, and half the department under his thumb, and he's preparing a major shipment tomorrow night. $5 million worth. Nina felt a cold wash over her. Tomorrow night. $5 million, and Jasmine's trial is in less than 48 hours. Why the rush? She whispered. Because once your sister is convicted, Harris said, Reed becomes untouchable. The threat grows. The next morning, Nina drove to the Millfield Gazette. She needed her press credentials to access records, but as she stepped out of her car, a black SUV pulled up beside her. The tinted window lowered. Captain Mark Reed's gaze met hers, calm, smiling, venomous. Miss Turner, he said warmly, fancy meeting you here. Nina swallowed hard. You're stalking me. Reed stepped out of the SUV, towering over her. Let's walk. No. It wasn't a request, Reed said quietly. He led her toward a small park. No witnesses, just the rain-damp pavement and empty benches. Your sister is facing 20 years, Reed said, but the DA might consider leniency if certain questions stop being asked. Nina's hands clenched. You mean if I give up? She said. If I stop investigating, if I let you destroy her. Reed smiled faintly. Call it whatever makes you feel righteous. Nina swallowed her fear and met his gaze head on. You framed my sister, she said, just like you framed my father. Reed's smile disappeared. You think evidence appears out of thin air? He asked softly. You think people like them aren't capable of getting involved in the wrong things? Nina stepped back. You're a monster. Reed leaned in, voice razor sharp. And you are running out of time. Then he walked away, leaving Nina shaking. She returned to her car and froze. A manila envelope sat on the passenger seat. Inside, a photograph of her entering the cabin, stamped with a timestamp. Marked in red ink, we're watching. Nina's world tilted. They weren't just threatening Jasmine. They were threatening her. The team grows stronger. She drove straight back to the cabin, adrenaline still pounding through her. We don't have time to be afraid, she said as she stormed inside. Sarah looked up from a pile of ledgers, Alex from his laptop. What happened? Sarah asked. They're watching us, Nina said. Reed knows everything, but we're not stopping. She dumped the files she'd gathered onto the table. We need everyone Reed has framed, she said. Every name, every story, every witness. Alex cross-referenced names. Sarah reviewed arrest patterns. Nina lined up case files in chronological order. Together, they uncovered the pattern. All minorities. And all had crossed Reed, all framed with identical drugs, so all pressured into plea deals. All fast-tracked through the courts. All abandoned by the same handful of public defenders. Too overworked to fight. It was a pipeline, a machine, a system built to destroy. Nina's chest tightened, not just with rage, but with heartbreak. These people didn't just lose cases, she whispered. They lost lives. Sarah nodded, and Reed profited from every one of them. The humanistic lesson, the beginning of unity. Alex leaned back, rubbing his eyes. This is corruption on a scale I've never seen, he said. But with you three, it might actually fall. Sarah placed a hand on Nina's shoulder. Your father started this, she said gently. You and Jasmine, you're finishing it, and not alone. Nina inhaled deeply. For the first time since Jasmine's arrest, she felt something rising through the fog of fear. Strength, community, human love burns through injustice. This wasn't a battle fought by one woman. It was a movement built by many. People harmed, people silenced, people brave enough to stand together. And it was only beginning. Sunday morning broke cold over Brenton County Jail, the kind of cold that seeped into bone and memory. In her cell, Jasmine Cole woke long before the count, long before the guards marched down the hallway, jangling keys like chains. The stale air pressed heavily on her skin, but something in her heart pulsed with restless urgency. 36 hours until her trial. 14 hours until Reed's secret drug shipment. Less than 2 days until she was moved permanently and lost forever inside a system built to swallow voices like hers. She had always known justice wasn't blind, but she never imagined how far the system would go to protect a man like Reed, and how close she was to unraveling everything he'd built. The guard walked past the cell with his clipboard. "Cole," he barked, "attorney visit in 20 minutes. Her pulse tightened. Price? Or someone else? Someone working for Reed? Or someone trying to save her? The uncertainty was a cold war inside her chest. Keisha sat up slowly on her bunk. "You okay?" Jasmine nodded, though the gesture felt fragile. "Today is going to be big," she whispered. "Everything is moving." Keisha studied her carefully. "You're scared." "Yeah," Jasmine admitted, "but I'm ready." Keisha exhaled, voice soft. "Your daddy raised a fighter." Jasmine closed her eyes. That truth hurt and strengthened and burdened all at once. The clock ticks louder inside the cabin. Nina's burner phone rang. She answered immediately. "Reddick!" His voice was sharp, tense. "Reed called an all-hands meeting tonight, 11 p.m. at the warehouse." Nina scribbled notes. "That lines up with Harris's intel." Alex looked up from his laptop, eyes wide. "The shipment?" "Everything," Reddick confirmed. $5 million worth. Reed wants it moved before dawn." Nina felt her heart hammering. "Why tonight?" "Because Reed is scared," Reddick said. "Your investigation, Jasmine's files, he senses it slipping." Sarah leaned in. "There's more, isn't there?" A grim pause. "They're moving Jasmine tomorrow morning," Reddick said. 5:30 a.m., transfer to state prison. Nina felt the blood drain from her face. "What? That's illegal. She has a trial at 9. "Reed doesn't care," Reddick snapped. "He'll justify it as high-risk protocol. Once she's in the state, he has guards there. People on payroll. She will not be safe." The room fell silent. Alex swallowed hard. "He's going to kill her." Reddick didn't deny it. "You have 1 day," he said. 1 day to save her." The call ended. Nina stared at her sister's evidence board. The faces of innocent people Reed had framed. The shipping records. The map of Clearwater Holdings. Her father's final notes. Jasmine wasn't the first target, but Nina promised herself she would be the last. The gravity of urgency, Sarah spoke first. "We need Jasmine's watch." Alex nodded. "That micro SD card is the spine of the entire case." Nina's hands trembled. "Price has to retrieve it. He's the only one allowed into evidence storage." Alex opened a drone case. "Meanwhile, we need surveillance tonight. Real-time footage of Reed moving product." Sarah grabbed her coat. "I'll contact the federal prosecutor, the one Jasmine's father reached out to before he died. If anyone can fast-track warrants, it's him." Nina stared at the map pinned to the wall, breath shallow. "What about me?" she asked. Sarah looked at her gently. "You," she said, "are going back to the scene of the arrest." Nina blinked. "Why?" "Because maybe," Sarah said, "just maybe, a camera caught what happened." The gas station angle. The intersection felt different in the daylight, less haunted but still holding the echoes of Jasmine's terror. Nina walked across cracked pavement toward the convenience store, whose windows faced the exact place Jasmine had been framed. The clerk behind the counter recognized her immediately. "You're the reporter," he whispered. "The one whose sister got arrested." Nina swallowed. "Yes." He hesitated. "What do you want?" "I need to know if you saw anything that night." The clerk glanced toward the manager's office, then back at her. "I didn't see it, but the camera did." Nina's breath caught. "The police said your cameras were down," she whispered. The clerk leaned closer. They weren't. Manager told them that, so he wouldn't get involved. He slid a USB drive across the counter. I could lose my job for this, he whispered. Nina gripped the drive with shaking hands. You just helped save an innocent woman, she said softly. She hurried to her car, slammed the door, and plugged the drive into her laptop. The footage is loaded. She froze, clear as daylight. Officer Daniels is walking to Jasmine's trunk. Daniels is pulling a bag from inside his jacket. Daniels is stuffing it beneath the liner. A perfect, irrefutable, unforgivable recording. Oh my God, Nina breathed. Her hands trembled as she called Sarah. I have it, she whispered. The evidence that proves Jasmine was framed. Pieces falling into place. Meanwhile, back in the jail, Price walked into the visitation booth. He carried paperwork and an expression of exhaustion. They've moved your trial up again, he said. Jasmine's stomach churned. What? Tomorrow, he said softly. No time for discovery, no motions, no delays. Jasmine clenched her jaw. That's not legal. Price sighed. Nothing about this is legal. He slid forms across the table. The DA is offering a plea deal. 5 years. Jasmine laughed bitterly. So they can say I admitted guilt. So they can bury the truth. Price lowered his voice. Your sister left a message. He handed her a small folded note. Jasmine opened it beneath the table. We have the gas station footage. We have Dad's files. Hold on. Her breath caught. Price leaned forward. Anything else you need before trial? Jasmine kept her tone steady. My personal effects inventory. I need to ensure everything was logged. Price nodded. I'll request it. He didn't know what the request meant. He didn't know her watch wasn't just jewelry. It was evidence. Insurance. The key to exposing Reed. Jasmine's father's final gift. The federal thread. At the same time, Sarah Parker strode into a Chicago federal office with her badge, though she was technically on leave. Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chambers reviewed Jasmine's father's files. His face darkened. These are explosive, he said. Why didn't your father come to us earlier? He tried, Sarah said. He had a meeting scheduled 5 days before he died. Chambers froze. That meeting never happened. He never made it, Sarah whispered. Silence. Chambers finally looked up. Gather everything. I'm opening a federal file tonight. If what you're saying is true, we're hours away from the biggest police corruption takedown in Ohio history. Sarah exhaled with trembling relief. Justice, real justice, had finally entered the room. The defiance of sisters. That evening, Nina returned to the jail. She sat across from Jasmine, the two separated by glass but united by something stronger than steel. Jasmine lifted the phone. Maya, what did you find? We have footage, Nina whispered, of Daniels planting the drugs. Jasmine closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Dad's files led us to a warehouse, Nina continued. They're moving a $5 million shipment tonight. Just like he predicted, Jasmine murmured. There's more, Nina said. Harris is wearing a wire. Reddick is with us. The feds are watching. Jasmine couldn't breathe for a moment. You're building a case, she whispered. You're building a whole damn army. Nina's voice cracked. We're building it with you. A guard approached. 1 minute. Jasmine leaned close to the glass. My watch, she whispered. The micro SD card. It's still in property storage. Price is getting the inventory. It has everything. Every recording. Every file. Nina nodded. We'll get it. Jasmine hesitated. Nina, you need to be careful. Reed threatened you. He won't stop. Nina leaned closer. There is nothing in this world Reed can do that is stronger than what Dad gave us. We're finishing what he started. The guard tapped again, but their eyes remained locked. 2 sisters, 2 warriors, 2 women refusing to break. I love you, Jasmine said. I'm bringing you home, Nina vowed. The humanistic echo, the power of many. As Jasmine was escorted back to her cell, one truth echoed through her mind. Justice is never the work of one person. It is the work of many, each taking a risk, each refusing silence, each choosing love over fear. And tonight love was rising in Brenton. It rose in Nina's determination, in Keisha's whispered courage, In Sarah's relentless investigation, in Alex's brilliant hacking, in Reddick's quiet rebellion, in Harris's long overdue confession, the federal agents reviewing her father's files. A system built on fear was beginning to tremble. And Jasmine Cole, daughter of a man they killed, defender of the people they silenced, was becoming the spark that would burn corruption to the ground. Tonight the countdown began, and tomorrow the world would change. Night fell over Brenton like a warning. Thick clouds smothered the moon. A cold wind pushed against the buildings as if the city itself braced for impact. Far across town, the riverfront warehouse district sat in darkness, abandoned except for a single glowing office window and the faint, eerie hum of engines waiting. Inside Brenton County Jail, Jasmine Cole pressed her forehead to the cool concrete wall. She listened to the distant echo of footsteps, the soft rattle of keys, the metal groan of cell doors. Every sound tonight meant something. Every minute mattered. Her transfer to state prison was scheduled for 5:30 a.m. Her trial, rigged, rushed, predetermined, was set for 9. She could feel time slipping through her fingers. But tonight wasn't only a countdown to her destruction. It was the night Reed's empire would reveal itself, for better or worse. The warehouse. Where good men break at 10:58 p.m., 2 police cruisers rolled toward Clearwater Holdings Unit 17. Their headlights swept across steel siding, casting long, distorted shadows. The river behind the building churned with the wind. Inside one of the cars, Lieutenant Harris wiped his palms on his pants. He could feel the wire taped beneath his uniform shirt like a heartbeat. His breath fogged the windshield. He whispered into the darkness, "God help me." Foster's voice crackled faintly from the transmitter pinned inside Harris's collar. "Just stay calm. The feds are listening. You're doing the right thing." But Harris didn't know anymore. For 18 years, he had watched Reed twist justice. Small things at first, then darker, bolder, more monstrous. Drugs seized but never logged. Complaints disappearing. Officers rewarded for silence. And when Thomas Cole, Jasmine's father, got too close, he had watched Reed bury him. Harris had said nothing. Cowardice shaped itself slowly, he learned. One compromise at a time. Tonight, wearing a wire, walking into Reed's empire. Tonight was the first time he had defied fear. His cruiser stopped. Daniels and Phillips were already there. Reed stepped from his unmarked vehicle with a confidence that sickened Harris. "Move fast," Reed ordered. "We're late." The warehouse door creaked open. Duffel bags lined the floor. Large, dark, ominous. Reed slapped Harris on the back. "Count the inventory. Phillips logs distribution." Harris nodded, hoping Reed couldn't feel his trembling. Above them, hidden high in the rafters, a drone hovered almost silent. Alex's work. Its camera zoomed. Its microphone captured everything. The truth, for the first time, had eyes. The cabin. Where justice begins in the woods, Nina, Sarah, and Alex huddled around a monitor glowing softly in the dark. The drone feed displayed the warehouse from 4 angles. Faces, bags, weapons, license plates, every detail recorded. Sarah muttered, "If we had any doubt, this confirms it." Nina stared at the screen as Reed directed officers like a man conducting an orchestra of corruption. "That's over $5 million in cocaine," Alex whispered. "And he's distributing it," Sarah added, voice low with awe and disgust. "He just elevated this from corruption to federal trafficking." Nina felt her heart swelling with a mix of fear and fierce purpose. "Jasmine was right," she whispered. "Dad was right." "Tonight," Sarah said, "we finish what he started." Alex tapped the screen. "But this isn't enough. We need Reed to speak. We need him on record." They watched Harris hesitate, hovering near Reed. "Come on," Nina whispered. "Please say something." As if he heard her across the miles, Harris spoke. "Frank," he said softly, "you sure we should be doing this tonight? With that public defender's trial in the morning?" Reed gave a short, cruel laugh. "That case is done. She'll be convicted before lunch. Dead weight. After that, nobody's sniffing around here." Nina's hands tightened around the edge of the table. "There it is," Sarah breathed. "Intent, motive." "And listen," Alex added, "they don't know Harris is recording." "Keep listening," Nina whispered. We need him to mention the frame jobs. Reed turned to Daniels. Make sure all reports from Turner's arrest stay locked in my office. Nothing gets leaked. Nothing gets questioned. And the gas station camera? Daniels asked. Destroyed tomorrow, Reed said. After trial. Nina gasped. Sarah whispered, We got here just in time. Brutal truth on tape. Harris forced steady breathing. Frank, tell me honestly, he said, voice trembling with fear he didn't have to fake. Did she really? Was the coke in her car actually planted? Reed smirked. Of course. She was digging into things she shouldn't have. Same as her father. Daniels snorted. That family never learns. Harris felt something break inside him. For years he had carried guilt for staying silent about Thomas Cole's death. Now hearing Reed speak so casually about destroying 2 generations of the same family, he nearly ripped the wire off his chest. Reed continued, voice dripping with cruelty. Thomas Turner was nosy. Jasmine's worse. But at least this time, we won't have to stage a suicide. Nina's hand flew to her mouth. Sarah froze. Alex whispered, Oh my God. Reed had said it. The truth. On tape. Harris's breath turned ragged. Frank, someone will figure it out. Someone always does. Reed stepped close to him. You think anyone will care about a dead public defender? He hissed. Her cases, her clients, nobody's. Nina's nails dug into her palms. People care, she whispered. We care. The drone captured every word. America would hear it soon enough. An unlikely hero finds courage. Harris swallowed hard. What about internal affairs? He forced out. What if someone... We own internal affairs, Philip said, laughing. Always have. Harris turned toward him, the wire buzzing faintly under his shirt. And if someone flips? He asked. Reed stepped close again, eyes dark. Anyone who flips dies. Harris nearly collapsed. Daniels grinned. So we all behave. Reed added softly. I'm serious, Harris. Loyalty only goes one way in my department. But something miraculous happened then. Something Harris hadn't felt in 18 years. Courage. He straightened. Frank, he said, voice steadier. You can't control everything. Reed laughed. Watch me. But Harris held his ground. Maybe because Jasmine's bravery had ignited something. Maybe because her father's death had carved a wound in him he could no longer ignore. Maybe because injustice crushes the spirit until something finally snaps. Whatever the reason, Lieutenant Harris made a choice. A moral one. A dangerous one. A redeeming one. Tonight he refused to stay silent. The jail. A final night of fear. Back at Brenton County Jail, Jasmine paced her cell. A guard paused outside. Cole, he muttered, voice uneasy. Transfer team arrives at 5:30 a.m. Understood, she replied, her voice calm, though her insides were trembling. As he walked away, Keisha turned toward her. You think they'll try something? Jasmine inhaled slowly. Yes. Then why aren't you panicking? Jasmine's eyes softened. Because I'm not alone. For the first time in days, her chest loosened. Her sister was out there. Her team was gathering evidence. Federal eyes were watching. Harris was wearing a wire. And the truth, finally, was being recorded. Jasmine sat on her bunk, hands clasped. Her father had died fighting the system alone. But she would not face it alone. I'm coming home, she whispered into the darkness. One way or another. The storm breaks 10:59 p.m. The drone zoomed in closer. Reed lifted duffel bag after duffel bag. Daniels handed him paperwork. Philip secured the distribution ledgers. And Harris stood frozen, an unwilling player in a theater of corruption. Nina whispered, We need one last piece. One line that ties him to trafficking. One line that proves the network is illegal. As if the universe listened, Reed spoke again. Move the shipments by sunrise. If the dealers don't have it by noon, we lose the entire weekend cycle. And I don't lose money. Sarah grabbed the recording device. That, right there, that's federal drug trafficking beyond any doubt. Alex exhaled shakily. This is it. This is everything. Nina didn't speak. She couldn't. Her father died chasing this truth. Her sister almost died. 8 innocent people had lost their lives or freedom. Brenton had been suffocating for years under the weight of Reed's power. And now, it was all unraveling. Not through violence, not through revenge, but through evidence, unity, courage, and truth. This, Nina realized, is what building a better America looks like. Ordinary people choosing morality over fear, choosing justice over silence, choosing love over hate. And in that moment, watching her father's killers sentence themselves with their own words, Nina felt something powerful rising. Hope. Monday morning arrived like a held breath. 5:29 a.m. A gray, cold dawn stretched over Brenton County Jail. Mist rolled along the street, swallowing the edges of the parking lot. Inside, guards gathered near the loading bay, their boots echoing in the corridor. A white prison transport van idled, exhaust curling in the dim light. Jasmine Cole stood in her cell, wrists shackled, ankles cuffed, chin raised. She had never looked stronger, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she was afraid and still standing. The guard opened her door. "Cole, time to go." She stepped forward, not helpless, not defeated, but ready. Ready for whatever came next. Because this time, she wasn't walking toward destruction, she was walking toward justice. The final threat, Captain Frank Reed, arrived in full uniform, polished silver pins gleaming. He moved with the arrogance of a man who believed he had already won. He dismissed the guards with a flick of his hand. "I'll escort her myself," he said. Jasmine met his eyes. "Eager this morning, Captain?" she asked. "For my trial?" Reed smirked. "I'm eager for closure." His tone turned cold. "After today, Jasmine, nobody will remember your accusations. Not the jury, not the department, certainly not the press." He leaned in. "And in state prison, mistakes happen, especially to women who make powerful enemies." Jasmine inhaled slowly. "Frank," she whispered, "do you ever get tired?" "Tired of what?" "Trying to bury every person who stands up to you." A flicker of irritation crossed Reed's face. "You talk too much, counselor." "No," she said softly. "You underestimate too much." The ultimate reveal. The transport van doors opened. Inside the jail entrance, Jasmine could see unfamiliar figures gathered. Professional, sharp, strong. A man stepped forward. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Davis. He held a thick folder in one hand, a federal badge in the other. Behind him stood Sarah Parker, Price, and, shockingly, Officer Reddick. Reed froze. "What is this?" he demanded, face tightening. Davis spoke with calm authority. "Captain Frank Reed," he said, "this is a federal warrant for your arrest." The words fell like thunder. "For drug trafficking, evidence tampering, civil rights violations, financial fraud, conspiracy, murder under color of law." He paused. "Shall I continue?" Reed turned pale. "You have no proof." Jasmine stepped forward slowly, deliberately, regal even in shackles. "Oh, but we do." From her property bag, Sarah withdrew Jasmine's father's vintage watch, the one Reed believed harmless, irrelevant. She placed it in Jasmine's palm. Jasmine held it up so Reed could see the glint of steel. 6 months of recordings, she said, of your officers planting evidence, of you at the warehouse, of your threats, of everything. Reed's face twisted into something animalistic. "You little—" Reddick warned, drawing his weapon. "Hands where we can see them, Captain." The betrayal cut Reed like a blade. "You were working with them?" he snarled. Reddick swallowed. "No, I was working with the people you hurt." Federal marshals moved in, cuffing Reed's wrists. For the first time in years, Reed felt powerless. For the first time in years, Jasmine felt whole. "You murdered my father," she said softly, "but you will not bury his truth." Reed struggled, furious, but the marshals held firm. "This isn't over," he spat. Jasmine stepped closer, voice steady as a heartbeat. "Yes, it is." The courtroom turns. 2 hours later, the Brenton District Courthouse overflowed. Reporters pressed against the walls. Officers stood rigid, unsure which side history would remember them on. Judge Grant entered, his expression confident. "Case 2025 CR 1701, he announced. "State versus—" The courtroom doors burst open. A U.S. Marshal strode forward, followed by AUSA Davis. "Your Honor," Davis said loudly, "this proceeding is suspended. The defendant's arrest was the result of fabricated evidence, criminal conspiracy, and police corruption at the highest levels." Whispers erupted like wind in a canyon. Judge Grant stiffened. "What is the meaning of this?" Davis handed him a stack of files. "Federal evidence," he said, "proving that Captain Reed and 11 officers orchestrated a drug distribution network and framed innocent citizens, including Ms. Jasmine Cole." Grant flipped through pages, his face turning white as chalk. This is impossible." "No," Maya said from the front row, rising slowly. "This is the truth." Behind her stood Sarah, Alex, Reddick, and 7 people Jasmine had defended or encountered in jail, the ones Reed framed. They stood together, a line of courage, a line of truth, a line of America refusing to be broken. Grant slammed his gavel. "We will recess." But Davis spoke sharply. "No, we will not. Judge Grant, you are hereby notified that you are named in this investigation. You will step down pending federal review." The room exploded. Gasps, cries, outrage, hope. Jasmine rose, still wearing shackles, and the entire courtroom turned toward her. Not with shame, not with disdain, but with awe. Grant's voice cracked. "Release the defendant." A bailiff hurried forward, unlocking Jasmine's wrists. Metal fell to the ground like chains breaking, and Jasmine, finally free, exhaled a breath she had been holding for 8 years. The press conference. A new narrative. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Microphones extended like anxious flowers. AUSA Davis addressed the nation. "Today marks the end of one of the most extensive police corruption schemes in state history. Thanks to the courage of Public Defender Jasmine Cole, a network of abuse, trafficking, and conspiracies has been dismantled." Behind him, officers led Reed and his conspirators away in cuffs. Maya squeezed Jasmine's hand. "That's for Dad," she whispered. Jasmine nodded, eyes shining. "For all of us." Davis continued. "This case proves an essential truth. Justice survives only when ordinary people take extraordinary risks. Ms. Cole stood when the system tried to silence her. Her father died seeking this truth. Today we honor both of them." Reporters called out, but Jasmine spoke before they could. Her voice was steady, warm, profoundly human. "I didn't fight this battle because I'm a lawyer," she said. "I fought it because corruption hurts every one of us. Because when good people stay quiet, families grieve, communities crumble, and America loses a piece of its soul." Her gaze swept across the crowd. "We can build something better, together, with love, courage, and the belief that every life matters." Tears slipped down faces in the crowd. Hands clasped hearts. A few people whispered, "Amen," because they felt it. This wasn't just the end of a case. This was the beginning of a movement. The epilogue, an America worthy of us. 6 months later, sunlight poured through the newly renovated Brenton Community Justice Center. A plaque gleamed beside the entrance. The Thomas Cole Justice Initiative. For those who fought, for those who fell, for those who will rise. Jasmine stood at the podium, her sister beside her. "To everyone who feels unseen," Jasmine said, voice warm and strong, "this place is for you, for the wrongfully accused, for the communities harmed by prejudice, for those who lost faith in justice. We're here to rebuild it, with transparency, compassion, and truth." Tasha Williams, now the center's outreach director, smiled proudly from the front row. Sarah Parker headed the investigations unit. Alex Rodriguez managed to secure reporting systems for whistleblowers, and Reddick, promoted to interim captain, implemented reforms Jasmine once only dreamed about. A new America was forming here. Not perfect, but finally honest. After the ceremony, Jasmine walked alone to the cemetery. She knelt at her father's grave, tracing the engraving. Detective Thomas Cole, 1965-2017. A man of truth. She placed his watch beside the flowers. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. "We finished what you started." A warm breeze swept across the headstone, and for a brief, gentle second, Jasmine felt him there. Proud, at peace, finally vindicated. She rose. She wasn't done fighting. Justice is not a destination. It is a journey, and she would walk it every day. For her father, for every innocent life harmed, for the America she believed in. One forged not by hate or fear, but by courage, truth, and love. In the end, this story was never just about corruption, or a police captain, or one woman fighting to clear her name. It was about America. The America we live in, the America we struggle within, and the America we are capable of becoming. Jasmine's journey reminds us that injustice doesn't disappear on its own. It lingers in silence, grows in fear, and survives on our willingness to look away. But when good people stand up, when families refuse to be broken, when communities unite across color, class, and background, even the strongest systems of corruption begin to crack. Her story teaches us that justice requires courage, change requires unity, and healing requires love. We must reject the poison of racism wherever we see it, in our institutions, our neighborhoods, our workplaces, and yes, even in ourselves. Because racism doesn't just harm the targeted, it weakens our nation, it fractures our humanity, it steals the future our children deserve. But when we choose compassion over cruelty, when we stand for each other instead of against one another, we build an America worthy of its promise, an America where every life is valued, where every voice is heard, where justice is more than a word. It is a lived reality. So as you leave this story, carry its lesson with you. Stand up when something is wrong. Speak out when someone is silenced. Love loudly in a world that tries to divide us. Because real change doesn't start in courtrooms or Congress. It starts in the human heart. And together we can build a country that is stronger, kinder, more just, and deeply, beautifully united. Subscribe to the Racial Truth YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss stories that expose the truth and uplift the fight for justice. Visit the channel and watch more videos that shine a light on racism, courage, and the power of human unity. Join a community that believes in love over hate, truth over silence, and justice over fear. Together, we write the next chapter. Together, we build a better America.